When people think of Vikings, they imagine fearless warriors, massive beards, legendary longships, epic battles, and endless adventures. Movies make it look amazing. Video games make it look even better. But if you actually lived as a Viking, you would probably hate it. Because behind the famous raids and heroic stories was a harsh reality. Most Vikings weren't famous warriors. They were farmers struggling to survive. They lived in cold, cramped houses, worked from sunrise to sunset, faced constant hunger, and could die from things that modern people wouldn't even worry about. So today, let's find out why being a Viking was mostly terrible. The day starts before sunrise. No alarm clock, no coffee, no warm shower, no comfortable mattress. You wake up on a wooden bench covered with animal skins, if you're lucky. The room smells like smoke. It smells like livestock. It smells like people. Because everyone lives together. Parents, children, grandparents, and sometimes animals, all under one roof. The moment you open your eyes, work begins. There are no weekends, no vacation days, no retirement plans. If you're a farmer, and most Vikings were, you spend your day feeding animals, repairing fences, gathering firewood, fishing, or working the fields. Every single day. Because missing work doesn't mean losing money. It means losing food. And losing food means risking starvation. The average Viking home was called a longhouse. The name sounds impressive. The reality, not so much. Longhouses were crowded. A fire burned in the center. Smoke escaped through holes in the roof. At least that was the idea. Often the smoke stayed inside. Imagine breathing smoke every day of your life. Your eyes sting. Your clothes smell. Your lungs suffer. And during winter, things get worse. Much worse. The cold settles in for months. The darkness seems endless. Outside, it's snow, ice, wind, more snow, and somehow even more wind. Now let's talk about food. Because Vikings are always shown feasting. Huge tables, roasted meat, barrels of ale, everyone having a fantastic time. Those feasts happened, but not often. Most days, the menu was much less exciting. Fish, porridge, bread, turnips, cabbage, more fish. Even more fish. If the harvest was good, life was manageable. If the harvest was bad, life became dangerous. One poor season could push an entire community toward famine. Imagine spending winter wondering whether your food supply will last until spring. That wasn't unusual. That was normal. And then there were diseases. Modern people don't think much about getting a small cut. Vikings absolutely had to. A simple infection could become deadly. A broken bone could permanently disable you. An infected tooth could kill you. There were no antibiotics, no emergency rooms, no hospitals. Even childbirth carried enormous risks. Many children never reached adulthood. Many adults never reached old age. Life expectancy was lower largely because death was everywhere. Every year brought new dangers, and most of them couldn't be avoided. Now let's talk about the ocean, because everybody loves Viking ships. And to be fair, Viking ships were incredible, fast, flexible, advanced for their time, but sailing them was terrifying. Imagine climbing into a wooden boat. No GPS, no radio, no engine, no weather forecast, no rescue service. Then heading into the freezing North Atlantic. One storm could destroy everything. Massive waves, freezing temperatures, violent winds. Ships sank, people disappeared. And if you ended up in the water, you probably weren't coming back. Then there were the raids, the thing Vikings are most famous for. Movies make raids look exciting. Reality was much uglier. Imagine attacking a foreign village. Everyone is armed. Everyone is terrified. Everyone is fighting for survival. One lucky arrow, one spear, one sword strike, and you're gone. The Vikings who survived became legends. The Vikings who died became statistics. History remembers successful warriors, not the thousands who never made it home. And even if you never became a raider, life was still difficult because there were no easy jobs. Farmers worked endlessly. Blacksmiths spent hours surrounded by intense heat. Fishermen battled dangerous waters. Hunters risked injury from animals. Woodcutters handled sharp axes every day. Everything required physical labor. Everything was exhausting. And there was no sick leave, no disability support. If you couldn't work, life became very hard, very quickly. Then came winter, the season Vikings feared most. Winter in Scandinavia wasn't just cold, it was relentless. The days became incredibly short. In some regions, the sun barely appeared. Food supplies slowly disappeared. Travel became difficult. Everything slowed down. Imagine being trapped indoors for weeks. No television, no internet, no phone, no electricity, just darkness, cold, and waiting. A lot of waiting. Here's something surprising. Vikings actually cared about cleanliness. Archaeologists have discovered combs, tweezers, and grooming tools. Compared to many people in medieval Europe, Vikings were relatively clean, but there was still a problem. No indoor plumbing, no hot running water, no washing machines, no modern soap. Staying clean required effort. And despite their efforts, life was still messy, very messy. The legal system could also be brutal. Today, if someone steals from you, you call the police. Vikings didn't have that option. Disputes often became personal. Family feuds could last generations. Arguments could turn violent, and justice often depended on who had the most support. Imagine having a disagreement with someone and accidentally starting a conflict that affects your grandchildren. That happened a lot. And perhaps the biggest misconception of all, most Vikings never lived exciting lives. Most never became famous warriors. Most never raided England. Most never discovered distant lands. Most never fought epic battles. Most spent their lives farming, repairing tools, maintaining fences, raising families, and worrying about survival. In other words, most Vikings lived ordinary lives, just much harder than ours. So was being a Viking cool? From a distance? Absolutely. The ships were impressive. The exploration was extraordinary. The stories were legendary, but actually living as a Viking, that's another story. You wake up exhausted, work all day, risk disease, endure brutal winters, face hunger, and hope tomorrow isn't worse than today. The Vikings achieved incredible things, but they paid a heavy price for them, which means the next time you see a Viking charging heroically into battle, remember this: the luckiest Viking may not have been the warrior becoming famous. It may have been the farmer who simply survived another winter. And honestly, that was probably the bigger victory.